Secretary Caleb Frostman is with us today. I'm just going to read his little bio quick. This is an appointed position by Governor Tony Evers. He is the Secretary of the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. And he previously served as the Senator of Wisconsin's 1st District, which represents Door County and Kewaunee counties, as well as parts of 4 other counties, it says. He previously served as Executive Director of the Door County Economic Development Corporation and worked in commercial real estate finance for nearly a decade. He did grow up in Green Bay and graduated from UW-Madison Business School, and he is committed to advocating for the economic advancement of Wisconsin working families through effective and efficient workforce programming. And we welcome him very much today. He's going to have a couple talking points, and then we can start asking him questions. So thank you so much, Secretary Frostman, for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to be here. Even if I'm your guinea pig, I hope it goes well the first time, but really always enjoy the chance to talk to business leaders. And this is kind of a new series for us too. We are trying to reach out to chambers around the state and give our business leaders an update as to what we're up to, and also to get feedback as to either what's going well out there or what you could see us investing in as far as time and resources. So thank you for the invite to be here today. And I think, for my talking points, I would be remiss if I didn't start with an update on unemployment insurance in the state. Obviously, that's been a really incredibly strong focal point for our agency. We have 6 different divisions, including workers' comp, employment and training, equal rights. We have an operations division, as well as vocational rehab. But unemployment insurance obviously has taken the lion's share of our effort and our attention over the last 5 months. And I think it's helpful when I start these to just give a little bit of context. A couple weeks ago on the national side, ABC News put out a story just kind of discussing how the COVID-19 recession was unlike anything we've ever seen before. And they pointed out the previous 1-week record for initial claims for unemployment in the US was previously during the 1982 recession, and that was at 692,000 claims. And the streak just ended last week, but for 20 straight weeks, the US had more than 1 million initial claims. We beat that record 20 weeks in a row, and the first or second week, we beat that record by tenfold, had almost 7 million initial claims. So it's really been unprecedented and historic in all the wrong ways in terms of those just massive numbers. And in Wisconsin, we see similar trends over the last 5 months. We've had about, I think, 870,000 people file initial claims in the state. And in those 5 months, that compares to about 290,000 in all of 2019. So in less than a half a year, we've had almost triple the number of initial claims. And that peaked in late March and early April and has steadily tapered off since that time. We've actually dipped into the teens the last few weeks as far as initial claims. We were seeing in March, some weeks over 100,000 initial claims coming through. I think we're grateful and cautiously optimistic to see those numbers continue to decline as far as new claims. But as far as those recurring claims, the weekly claims from which people get paid, in that same 5-month period, we've had 5.7 million weeks of unemployment claimed in the state, which compares to 1.6 million in all of last year. So in this case, more than triple in 5 months. So needless to say, our workload remains very, very high in DWD and within the unemployment insurance division at DWD. And of those 5.7 million weeks, we've resolved, meaning either paid or denied, 5 million of those weeks. So about 88.5% have been resolved to this point. And even though we're making good week-over-week progress as far as our productivity, the relatively high sustained level of weekly claims continues to keep our workload very high. And I'm sure if folks have seen the news stories out there, to effectively address that enormous volume of claims, we've had to hire people, and lots of them. And since I think early April, between internal transfers, intergovernmental transfers from their agencies, hiring people into the agency, and bringing on contracted vendors, we've increased our UI staff resources from 500 pre-COVID to just shy of 2,000 at its peak earlier this summer. So a pretty substantial lift as far as recruiting those folks, vetting them, hiring them, and then of course training them and continuing to tweak training to make sure that the people we're bringing on board are experienced and seasoned and doing the work correctly. So it's been obviously a big focus in a lot of areas, but specifically with our adjudicators and then our call centers to make sure we have enough folks to provide good customer service, or at least continually make progress on that. And we are seeing progress as far as what we're doing in weekly adjudications, as well as on some of the federal programs like PUA. FPUC has since ended, but we continue to put those folks into new trainings to make sure that they're staying abreast of what's happening. But all told, over the last 5 months, through all the programs, UI, some of the federal programs, we have paid 495,000 Wisconsinites about $3.5 billion. So it's been a wild couple of months. We continue to work really hard to make sure we can pay all the eligible claimants what they're due as fast as possible. And I would just kind of pivot to one of the great, I wouldn't say great, but one of the really good success stories, maybe it is great, one of the success stories coming out of COVID-19 as it relates to unemployment insurance is the WorkShare program. And I'm not sure if folks on this call are familiar with WorkShare, but it allows employers to reduce hours of their employees between 10 to 60%. Then of course those folks get pro rata wages, but they stay attached to their benefits, and then they're also eligible for partial unemployment insurance. And so it's been really popular and widely utilized throughout the state. In March, before COVID, we had one employer utilizing WorkShare with about 20 participants. Since that time, we peaked in July at just shy of 700 employers with about 23,000 employees utilizing WorkShare. And so if there are employers on this call, or if you interact with employers who are contemplating layoffs or might contemplate those in the future, this is a great way to keep employees on the payroll, to keep some productivity at those places of employment. And it allows kind of a best case scenario where those employees remain attached to their health care. They're generally able to continue sustaining not just themselves, but their local economy through their normal purchasing and spending. And so it's really been really popular, and I'm hopeful that if there are employers on this call, that if they're having troubles, I would certainly recommend evaluating WorkShare. There's a lot of information out there at dwd.wisconsin.gov/UI-tax/WorkShare. I've given that out a lot. We're working on a one-pager to make that perhaps more easily distributable, but that page is really helpful for those employers looking to perhaps stave off permanent or full layoffs. And then pivoting into just relief, recovery, reopening for the state. I think when we give these talks or when we listen to people around the state, first and foremost, the greatest thing that we're focusing on as far as recovery is getting COVID-19 contained and under control. That's going to be the greatest determinant of when business and our state's economy returns to a quote unquote normal state, is when we can get that to a manageable level, and when people feel safe going out to dinner, going to the grocery store, going to work. But WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, has put out some great resources at wedc.org/reopen-guidelines, but they put together a great packet that has some industry-specific information. But generally speaking, we start with that, the importance of hand washing and mask wearing and social distancing as a way to hopefully eradicate, but at least contain and improve our trajectory on COVID-19, because we've not been going in the right direction in some time. But that's first and foremost what we focus on. But it's been interesting, as even before COVID, noticed some pretty pronounced fracture lines in our economy as they relate to racial inequities, broadband connectivity around the state, access to healthcare, access to childcare. And so we are working very hard at DWD as we pivot ever so slightly and hopefully more and more as each day goes on toward recovery to make sure that we're building an inclusive recovery, that the work we're doing can help reach those in all industry sectors and in all geographies, but that it takes into consideration some of the challenges we were facing before COVID and have been exacerbated by the economic impacts of this virus. And just want to highlight a couple DWD resources for the folks on this call, one of which is jobcenterofwisconsin.com. That is a free labor exchange for both employers and for job seekers. It's a great way to connect with those that might be unemployed. Unemployment insurance claimants have to fill out a resume or register on JCW, and so that's a great way to find folks that are looking for work, and that interface is able to match skills and abilities to the jobs that are out there, and we're hopeful that employers will continue to use that. Early on in the pandemic, when we were still trying to decipher what was an essential business or a non-essential business, we put together an in-demand jobs page for those businesses that at that time were deemed essential, and that page still exists. But JCW in general is a great resource. It can do searches for both employers and job seekers by geography, by industry, and by skills. So I would really encourage those folks to take a look. If there are employers on this call, as of the most recent look, which was earlier this week, we had about 135,000 resumes on JCW and about 72,000 jobs posted on that exchange. So lots happening there. Please check that out. Obviously, with COVID-19, many state buildings remain closed to the public, and in large part that is true also for our job centers. But we have been, I think, pleasantly surprised, or at least encouraged by the effectiveness of our virtual job service delivery. Most of our services are still being delivered, albeit over the phone, over the internet, and we're reaching out to help veterans, to help the recently unemployed. But that's going, like I said, going fairly well. We're learning some good lessons about what happens post-COVID and what can be delivered virtually and where some of our blind spots are. And again, it's been really, it's really underscored the lack of broadband in many parts of the state as people try to access our services. Connectivity can be a big issue, obviously in some of the outstate rural areas, but even perhaps in some of those outer ring suburban areas, we've had some issues regarding connectivity. And we also have a very robust and experienced seasoned team. Hopefully, we don't need to use them often. Hopefully, we're on the right track to recovery, but our rapid response teams have been very effective in helping dislocated workers, including up at Verso in Wisconsin Rapids and at the Potawatomi Casino, Milwaukee. But those teams are very able, they're very experienced, and like I said, we hope to use those folks sparingly. Hopefully there are not that many mass layoffs here going forward, but wanted to give that group a shout out as we move forward. And then just want to touch on too the pieces that we're focused on prior to COVID-19. Our training programs will continue to lean into things like Wisconsin Fast Forward. That's a relatively flexible employer-led training grant. We just gave out awards totaling, I think, $2.5 million at the end of June. We're likely to put out another GPA this fall for additional grants. But that's a great way for employers that want to provide transferable skills that result in recognized credentials for their trainees to either help folks that were unemployed become employed or help their incumbent employees advance within their workplace. But that's a very flexible program. We're working so hard to cut some of the red tape. We listen to the feedback on those programs and know that Fast Forward can be a challenge for small businesses that don't employ a grants manager, don't have the personnel that are familiar with that. So please know that we continue to listen to that feedback and try to incorporate it into our programs. But we're hopeful that even life mid-COVID and post-COVID, there are going to be training opportunities that can help people become employed and help those who are already working advance in the workplace and help employers deliver those skills that they need for their business and their industry to be successful. And then lastly, on our training programs, just we are really bullish and have been since day one on our apprenticeship programs. I'm not sure if any of the folks on the call today use either youth apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship, but obviously youth apprenticeship is going to look very different this year, potentially with working remotely, and I'm sure it's undetermined or unsure about virtual instruction in different parts of the state, but we are still investing a lot of time and resources in both of those programs. Registered apprenticeship, mostly due to the fact that you can learn a really in-demand transferable skill with a credential that follows you everywhere while earning a living wage. And so when we think about not just focusing on the quantity of jobs in the state, but also the quality of those jobs, helping someone not just pay their bills, but be able to invest in themselves, invest in their community while on the path to a living wage career. We are very, very strong believers in registered apprenticeship and trying to expand that program geographically, trying to expand it into new industries, new professions, and also trying to reach new populations. Historically, apprentices have not been the most diverse pool of employees, and so we're working hard to make apprenticeship more effective in reaching women and communities of color. But we really want to see that program grow across industries and across geographies. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on one other thing that we delivered within the last couple of months. With so much work, not all of it, but a lot of it, transitioning to remote work, we wanted to make sure that employers and employees still maintained a firm understanding of what the current labor laws are in this state and in this country. So think about the water cooler or the break room and all of those posters that are up regarding minimum wage, regarding hours and those kind of things, and overtime pay. We put together an online electronic repository of all of those posters so that employees could access them to understand their rights. Employers could do the same to understand their obligations and their rights. But that can be found at dwd.wisconsin.gov/eworkboard. And so we are really excited to be delivering that. And for all those tech savvy folks out there, that can be accessed also using a QR code. So we're very, I think, pleased to deliver that both for employers and employees. And I just forgot to mention too, I kind of skipped over youth apprenticeship, but we are still releasing just shy of $5 million into youth apprenticeship for this school year to 37 different consortia and just about 400 school districts. We expect to serve about 6,000 students, which is a pretty sizable jump over last year. I think we were about 5,500 last school year. So even though it's going to look perhaps different for different employers, different school districts, we are still very excited to offer youth apprenticeship throughout Wisconsin here in the next 9 months over this coming school year. So that in a really fast 15-minute nutshell is what we've been up to as far as UI and what we've been focusing on as far as recovery efforts. But I'm really, again, grateful for the invite to be here today. Hopefully, there's some nuggets there, and I'm hopeful that we can have that one pager on Workshare ready relatively soon. But again, want to just highlight that as an option for employers out there who might be considering potential layoffs now or in the future. But with that, I am happy to continue the fireside chat and answer any questions folks might have. I just appreciate the chance to be here today.
Great, thank you so much. So a couple of those links that Secretary Frostman mentioned, we put into the chat box. And I guess that starts me out with, is that the best way, is going to the DWD website the best way to filter through all of this information? Because there is a lot, and I think a lot of it gets lost in the shuffle. I mean, we here in Racine are really highly focused on youth apprenticeship, so people know they can, call the chamber or call our unified school district. But is really the website kind of the way to go?
It is. Our website is really robust, and I'll be the first to admit it can be a little overwhelming. I would just use the search function. That works really well if you're looking for work search, youth apprenticeship. Like I said, we have 6 divisions, all of which have layers upon layers, and we've worked hard to make them more user-friendly. But yes, that's the best place to start. And then we also try really hard to update our social media pages with pertinent information often in a user-friendly manner. So Facebook, LinkedIn are probably our two biggest. We also do Instagram and Twitter, but those are our two most often updated social media pages that have pertinent updates. But our website has everything. I will just admit that in some cases it can be kind of hard to find.
Sure. So that being said, can you, when you talk about the work share, can you just dive into a little
Yep.
bit more? Because I've seen a lot about it, but I kind of don't fully understand, and I haven't taken the time to research it. So, like, what is the share? What are you sharing exactly? Explain a little bit more what it means.
Yeah. No problem. Yep. So the work share, generally an employer, it's kind of a proactive step the employer can take if they're looking at their income statement and their projections and feeling worried about where things are at, and they think they might need to be laying some people off in the coming weeks or months. Work share is a proactive step they can take to reduce employee hours. So you can, like I said, reduce them from 10% up to 60%. And you can do as few as 2 employees. It used to be the greater of 10% or 20 people, I believe, but now you can do as few as 2 employees on a work share plan. And that is dwd.wisconsin.gov/UI tax/workshare. But when you apply, you can apply either through snail mail, through email, or via fax, but the application is out there on the webpage. But that is really, again, meant to prevent long-term layoffs, help keep those employees attached to their benefits, all of them, but specifically, I think most folks think healthcare, that they would perhaps be dislocated from if they were laid off permanently. And something else I forgot to mention that's really important, with a lot of the different legislation that was passed as a result of COVID, either in Wisconsin or federally, all of the benefits paid out of work share throughout the rest of the year are covered by the federal government and wouldn't affect employers' unemployment accounts in the state. So that's another big boon to businesses that won't affect your unemployment insurance charging, but it's meant to be that proactive step that can reduce your personnel overhead while also keeping those folks attached to their benefits. And then the additional benefit also is that those employees get some additional partial unemployment insurance to help subsidize what they've lost in their wages, again, which helps keep them afloat and allows them to continue their traditional consumption and spending habits that keep our local economies afloat.
Great, thank you. And I know that I know there's been lots of changes to the rules, and someday we'll kind of shift back. But right now, this is a question from the chat. Our current individuals, so I'm assuming this person who asked this means right now, in this moment in time, are current individuals who are filing for unemployment required to show proof of job search?
As of right now, they are not. So as part of the legislative package that was passed in this state, I believe in April or late March, work search requirements were waived through, I believe through October. I can follow up on the exact date, but as of right now, folks are not required to file work searches in order to receive unemployment insurance in Wisconsin.
So if October is the correct date, then after that point, December 1, whatever date that is, it would kind of go back to the way it was before, because that act would be
I think that's
obsolete.
the case, right? Yeah, that's the case right now, and I'm not sure what might be coming down the pike as far as additional legislation to extend that, but we'll see what happens in the next few weeks and months here.
So if Congress does pass another act, whatever, I don't use the right terminology all the time, with this is my question. If they do pass this additional $400 a week, which I've seen, is there any indication, well, first they'd have to pass that, but is there any indication that, when that would expire or anything? I mean, is it just all unknown right now because nothing's been officially passed?
Yep, so President Trump put forward an executive order 2 Saturdays ago that would allow for the expenditure of some FEMA dollars to supplement unemployment recipients that are eligible for $100 or more per week. And so a lot of states are still digging through that. Came through really quickly. So there were a lot of questions, some of which have been answered, some haven't, but a lot of states, including Wisconsin, are still digging through a lot of those questions and answers to see, what makes sense for each state as far as that FEMA program. So that would be up to $400 extra per week, $300 from the feds, and then if states chose the 400, it would have to come from some state funding. And the suggested method from the feds was to use remaining CARES fund dollars that weren't expended. But a lot of states are digging through this. I believe 7 states have applied and have been approved. We are still kind of working through the nuances, a lot of those rules and impacts. And so we're among the vast majority of states that are still exploring and trying to figure out how this would work with our system, with the dollars and those kind of things. But we'll see what happens. I think one of the ways that the executive order could end is if Congress comes back and puts forward a new package that would provide supplemental unemployment insurance. At this point, we've not heard of that. There's no plans to come back in other than perhaps for this, I think this postmaster situation. But the application period for the dollars related to the executive order ends on September 10th. So there's a lot of stuff still up in the air.
Yes, thank you for the explanation that the states, it's not just automatic, poof, $400. It's the states have to do some of their due diligence as well. Okay, so thank you for that explanation. It looks like in the chat box, your staff person mentioned, I can't find it now, that the work search is suspended through the end of September. And then with that note, there was a little bit of a follow-up question. Are people required to put a resume on the Job Center of Wisconsin website? It seemed like there was, maybe sometimes yes, sometimes no. Is a resume on the JCW website required?
Yep, so unemployment insurance claimants are required to put a resume on JCW.
Okay. So about that, the website, not only can you search for resumes, but you can post jobs there as well. I mean, that's another side of that. We have done that before here, so I just wanted to put that little plug in. Any other questions that anybody has? So we here at RAMAC received, I have show and tell even. We, with our, I think it's weekly information that we get from unemployment insurance, got this little gold flyer that said, fill out this form so that you can be put in the queue for the relief of charging of those unemployment claims. Any information, I did a little bit of a search and it said, please be patient. This is going to take quite a few months. So if any of you out there filled out this form, which I did back in July, it's just be patient and we'll eventually hear something from your office.
Yeah, no, that's a great flag. I appreciate you bringing it up. So that relief of charging piece is going to be extremely manual for us. We have to touch every employer. Our antiquated IT mainframe does not allow us to do anything other than go in and recharge those accounts manually. But it won't affect anyone's tax rates for 2021. But if you're looking at your accounts and it's way less than you think it should be, or that all these claims that came out of your account were COVID related and therefore should come out of a separate account as a result of legislation passed in April, just know that we are working on it. One of our biggest hamstrings throughout this has been our IT mainframe system that does not allow us to do any programming simultaneously. That's been done in order. So first it was the 1 week wait, then it was the federal programs, which we're still working on. And when we finish all of those, we will be working on the relief of charging fees. Even with the programming, we still have to touch every employer's account manually. So it'll take some time. We appreciate folks' patience, but keep sending in those forms and know that we will, get that taken care of as soon as humanly possible. It's just going to take some time.
I was asked to ask that question from the president here, so thank you very much. He will be happy to hear the answer. Anyone else? Our plan for our Business Matters chat was to keep them to about 45 minutes with buffer time to let them go an hour, but we do want them to be short and quick. So I am more than happy to take any more questions from anyone. Otherwise, I'll make just a few more announcements as reminders, and you can have the rest of your afternoons back. All right. Well, my announcements then are that, again, Business Matters Chat, we're going to be doing these once a month. This will be a very, very similar format for all of them. We'd like questions in advance so we can prepare our speakers, but taking them on the fly works just as well. So with that, I would advise everyone to jot down those websites. If you look on the chat box, Marley put a few of them in there. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us here at RAMAC at the chamber, because we can at least help you with answers or find the right people to go to. So please don't hesitate to do that. And with that, I say thank you to Secretary Frostman for spending a little bit of time with us here down in Racine. And that's all we have for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.